welcome to My Security TV and our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name is Chris Cubbage. I'm the Executive Editor with My Security Media, and today we're joined by Akamai. Going to be looking at the future of Zero Trust and getting some insights into the acquisition of Guardicore. We're going to be joined by Chris Gibbs, Managing Director and Vice President for Australia and New Zealand, and from Israel, our Vice President and CTO Enterprise Security Group, Ariel, Zeitlin, and looking forward to speaking to these two. And obviously, the Zero Trust has been a key word for 2021, and looking at the future of Zero Trust, we'll get some outlooks for 2022. So let's be joined by Chris Gibbs and Ariel Zeitlin. Chris Gibbs.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
And Ariel Zeitlin from Israel. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Ariel, I always like talking to a CTO, and you're CTO for Enterprise Security Group. Maybe introduce us to the background of your background in terms of Akamai as well. That'll guide us into Guardicore, and then obviously the role of the CTO that you have and how that relates to maybe Chris Gibbs with a real job as being the Managing Director here in Australia.
Sure, it was a pleasure. So I was the CTO for Guardicore, which is a startup company that was acquired by Akamai recently, just a few months ago. And now I am the CTO for the Enterprise Security Group, which manages the Zero Trust offering for Akamai. And I think as CTO, the role is, I would say, quite undefined and different from the position to position, but mostly it means, for me at least, defining the future of the space I'm in charge of, working closely with customers. I'll spend very large portion of my time speaking to our customers and helping in positioning, helping in marketing, definitely helping with the product development, identifying the priorities and so on. So it's quite, I would say, diverse from daily tasks. But the idea is looking forward and helping the company make the right decisions.
And obviously, you're still embedding. You were the CTO with Guardicore, so that was only September that acquisition was announced. Obviously, there was a bit of background to that, but bringing the platforms together or how they're going to work together, is that part of your role? And I take it you've got now technically two hats. One is your Guardicore client space, the enterprise clients, obviously, and then onboarding the Akamai clients. Is that where you're sitting at that senior level?
I think it's those two, and in fact more. So when you're joining businesses, there is integration of technologies, how those products from those companies will come under one roof and make a good offering for a customer as a joint pieces. 1 + 1 = 3, we called it during the acquisition discussions. Then there is the integration of basically two technology groups, developers, product teams, marketing, and so on. So that needs to be well thought, defined, and processed. And then, understanding the products on each side, which I know Guardicore, of course, but then there's a few products that we in a way acquired from Akamai and now managing. So it's busy days, but very interesting.
Well, they must complement each other. And before we'll hear more locally from Chris, maybe just introduce us to Guardicore and what that was doing. It was in the micro-segmentation field. That'll lead us into what you've been doing in Zero Trust. And we'll maybe come back to Chris on how all of this is going to look at and maybe change Akamai, because most of the audience will know Akamai in terms of the DDoS protection and sort of the networking side, but how this can change Akamai and the discussions that you're having?
Sure. I think that Well, micro-segmentation is already not a new buzzword in security industry as well. But if you look at wider, it's a very common technique that designed by nature and other industries. Like this is how you build chips. You build a chip by making compartments inside. So if one part of a ship is breached, the leak doesn't take the ship down. This is how beehives are built, right? They're protecting themselves from damage to one of the cells, so the honey will not leak everywhere. So it's a way to prevent a disaster in case of an incident. And in networks, micro-segmentation basically means assume you will be breached, which I think today is a common thought line.
Pretty safe assumption these days.
Exactly. And assume will be breached and make sure that it doesn't become a catastrophe. And in networks, it means basically reduce the amount of things that the attacker can make once he gets his first foothold, and basically breaking down the networks into many, many segments, and making sure that if he gets into one segment, this is where he stays. So the damage is limited. So that's the idea behind micro-segmentation. This is what Guardicore was building for a few years from its inception in 2013. And Guardicore was my first job outside
Right.
the government. I spent quite a lot of years on the government side. Was looking a lot of offensive type cyber, and coming from that background, it was clear there's no stopping of getting in. It's very hard if I'm incentivized enough. And what happens next is the major thing. How many obstacles do I meet? And we thought that this is exactly the what networks need today. They need more internal obstacles. So micro-segmentation sounds natural. And what we found is that it's really hard to micro-segment your networks with existing tools. So we developed a completely new approach.
So it was a pure micro-segmentation agent that you built, right?
Yes, Guardicore was a pure micro-segmentation technology.
Right. And Chris, that leads us to you in terms of Akamai. And you're relatively new in the role as managing director here in Australia, New Zealand, but you've now got a bit of a wider, broader conversation that you can have with clients as well.
Oh, most definitely, Chris, and thanks for having us. We're genuinely excited about the acquisition and the opportunity that the Guardicore acquisition provides us here in Australia, New Zealand. We see parallels in our acquisition of Guardicore with the acquisition that we did back in 2014 with the Prolexic platform, and that propelled us into the leadership position to stop DDoS attacks. And we believe the acquisition of Guardicore in Australia, New Zealand will propel us into the market leading role to stop damage caused by ransomware as well as malware. And so it's a great opportunity for us in the region. The conversations we're having with our key customers today are broader and deeper, and the customers are generally excited about the acquisition and the opportunity that it also provides them.
Great. And I think, Ariel, you provide that sort of international overview that you get, obviously what we see here in Australia, New Zealand, and across Asia Pacific, how that might compare to the observations in Europe and also North America or the Americas, and particularly your role as Enterprise Security Group CTO. What are those key trends that you're seeing, and what is the take-up of say micro-segmentation or the zero trust approach, and is that maybe where enterprises are looking to start? The ZTA, it's not just something you just switch on. It's a set of principles that you start to apply, and you roll it out, or you build from that. How do you find that conversation happens, and is it consistent around the world? You know, cybersecurity should be consistent around the world, but whether it's applied in the same way is a different thing. Do you find that the language and the way these conversations happen is pretty consistent around the world?
I think so, and then I think the reason is that the the threat actor changed a little bit, and what changed is that it's from a very few companies that could tell they are targets of those nation states or target for a very motivated attacker. Now everyone is a target because I don't sell data anymore as an attacker.
Yeah.
I sell access. So I have my attacker sitting in wherever, and I'm trying to monetize my efforts. I don't care if you're in Australia or China, as long as you are vulnerable, and in fact more vulnerable than your neighbor. That's what's important. And that I think that in this sense, we see ransomware, which is the latest way to monetize access, basically everywhere. In fact, it can start in a global organization at one point and spread through all its branches across the globe in an instant. So I don't have to target an Australian financial institution in Australia. I can target its branch in London, and I'm there. So I think globally, it's all the same. I don't really see, it's the same concerns we hear from security operators. It's the same problems they face. So I would say it's pretty much the same. And just, look, we are just waking up from a very tough weekend with this new vulnerability, right? And how it's going to be used by attackers. They'll just scan the network and try to breach wherever they find this vulnerability. And they don't care if it's in Australia or not. It doesn't matter. So I think the world becomes global even in this aspect. So we see an uptick in a requirement for ways to tackle those threats. And I think the industry is today converging around zero trust as the right approach. So we have, in our early days, been selling micro-segmentation mostly to the most regulated environments like financial institutions, healthcare, where they basically had a mandate to do micro-segmentation, and sometimes soft mandate, sometimes a very strict mandate. But there was a requirement, you had to do that, so it's easier to sell to them. But today, schools, manufacturers, everyone. So, I think the industry does, I strongly believe in zero trust. I think the industry does well into creating a common framework for everyone to go around it. And I think we see interest and budgets and priorities shaped around that. So this is, I think that becomes a common conversation. Everybody knows what zero trust. Not everybody knows what zero trust actually means, but a lot know that it's important, something you should, operate towards. And micro-segmentation has always been a major part of it. So that's where we have seen a significant uptick, and this is where the joining forces with Akamai became 1 + 1 = 3 for us.
Nice. And Chris, in terms of, because Akamai's always been known or has a strong brand in the DNS and the DNS firewall approach as well. Do you find Akamai is changing as well? You talked about the conversations that you're having with clients, but the expectations on vendors like Akamai to be able to broaden out those services, is you found that locally where they don't want to add it? Had Guardicore come to the region and said, okay, here's a micro-segmentation vendor, it's just easier to just bring it into Akamai, and again, it broadens out Akamai's service suite.
Yeah, Chris, you're so right. The conversations that we're having with CISOs and even CEOs and boards the conversations we're having with them is they're saying, Akamai, you're a strategic partner with us, you're a trusted brand. You've been able to demonstrate through, as you've mentioned, DDoS, DNS protection, web application firewall. We've been able to provide a solid pedigree in that area. So it's easy for us to go and have a conversation now, building out the zero trust conversation and having a conversation about Guardicore. Because the customers we're dealing with, they're saying, I want to do more with less customers. So I want to go and have those broader conversations. So to your point, it's a great opportunity for us here in the region. We're seeing lots and lots of discussions at the board level now, and lots of the governance and compliance requirements from that's being issued by the government have just sort of coming on board and coming on stream now, and boards are asking CISOs and CEOs, what's your plan around zero trust? What's your plan around ransomware? And what's your solution in that area? And the conversations that we've been having around DDoS protection, web application firewall, it's a natural consequence to go and have those conversations about ransomware and introducing Guardicore. So to your point, good conversations.
Yeah, and I noticed many people might have recognised Akamai in terms of the brand. Got a bit of news this year with an outage. It was only a short-term outage, but again, I thought it definitely raised the profile, and I think it was on the back of a Facebook outage as well. I think there was a couple of outages around the same time, so timing could have had a bit to do it. But was there any learning outcomes from that?
Oh, most definitely. And we've been in business for more than 20 years, Akamai, delivering services across the board. But we always learn from these situations. And that was an unfortunate event. We put our hand up, we took ownership for it, got on the front foot. We worked with customers to remediate the issue. And in particular, what we've done now is we've been working with those customers to automatically reroute those customers should there be an unfortunate incident again. And touch wood that we're definitely not planning for one, but if there was an incident, the customers will be always looked after. And the learning experience that we've had out of this with our customers has been fantastic. And even conversations with the customers are sort of saying, hey, look, you've been delivering a consistent top quality service with us for over 20 years. That's been impeccable, the service you provided. One of these incidents is bound to happen. And the thing is, they liked about it, we took ownership for them, helped route them off, and then we routed them back on when the service came back up and running. So those relationships and those conversations, I think we've definitely demonstrated that we supported our customers through some of those challenging times.
Yeah, it's always how you respond. Everyone expects nothing's perfect in the technology world, but it's always how you respond and then work with customers after that. So I think it was a good example, I thought. And I think the timing, it was more the timing around it. No one else would have noticed, but it was there was some other incident as well. So cyber was right up there at the time as well, which always happens, isn't it? Now, in terms of outlooks for 2022 and the future of zero trust, there's two ways we could take it. One is maybe back to Ariel in terms of the technical side on future of zero trust, and then maybe we'll come back to you, Chris, on the future of engaging with the enterprise from a vendor's perspective because of the zero trust approach that's being applied so broadly now. Ariel, in terms of the CTO role, is there any other kind of integrations that you're seeing? We talked about 1 + 1 = 3. Is there any 1 + 1 + 1 = 5 kind of approaches that you're bringing in? Or is this just going to be bedded down now in terms of that application of micro-segmentation into Akamai and then broadening out that suite further? Is that your role now strategically, continuing to bring on new solutions?
I think my role now is all that you mentioned, but basically is we need to become the best by far in the market offering for micro-segmentation. If you are thinking about micro-segmentation, if you think about Akamai almost instinctively, as you would think about specific firewall vendors, then for a firewall, then we did our job well. So our job is basically building the best offering package for anyone considering micro-segmentation. Zero trust. And then this basically means, yes, bringing the technologies together, developing each one of those better, because we don't only want to have the overall product as the best one. We want to have each piece to be the best one. So we don't even try to pick and choose different components. Deepening our investment in each one of the products. Specifically, this is the micro-segmentation by Guardicore, but then there ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access, and Enterprise Threat Protector, and WAF, and all of those to be the best in their field, and then building a combining package to make the offering in general the best. And specifically, it will come from integration perspective. We need to make it not only functionally the best, but also the easiest to deploy.
Yeah.
So a lot of those technologies based on agents. I think it does make sense to combine them. It will be easier.
It is deployed on one platform. It's not two separate platforms at the moment. They are integrated now, and you are accessing Akamai's platform, and you've got the Guardicore micro-segmentation within that now. Is that how it's been structured?
So now as we speak, because we were just sort of a month inside Akamai, so yeah. This is we're definitely working on making sure that you will access it from the same platform. But at this specific point, it's still two products. We are working on bringing them together. So this is one part of it. The second part of it, as I mentioned, is the actual sort of the sensors or control points that you deploy widely. They also will make a lot of benefit for a customer if it's one tool they need to manage for all of the offerings. So we'll be working there. And then the cherry on top is making the 3 to 5, as you mentioned, is start sharing signals between those different products. And an example of this would be if an Akamai threat protector tells, hey, one of your servers is accessing a malicious IP. If we can then trigger micro-segmentation to quarantine the server, this is a major win for a customer, because if it's a known bad, there is no need for it to access your critical database internally. You would rather kill it. So that's just one example of how the data can start being shared. I think this will be the 1 + 1 = 3.
Nice. And Chris, what's the focus for next year for you? You're still new in the role, obviously, but hopefully next year you can start to jump on a plane and actually go meet with customers rather than Zoom calls as well. Yeah. So I take it you've got a busy year ahead. And I suppose the other thing I wanted to get from you during this is, what are those early, not demands, but the conversation that you have been having out of all of these services and solutions that you do have? Is there any that's standing out? Is it the zero trust approach? It's certainly been a buzzword for a little while, but also micro-segmentation is another one. But as we mentioned, there's a range of other things that you're doing as well. Is there anything that stands out with the customers at the moment?
Yeah, so you've hit on a couple of the major topics. Obviously, the impact of ransomware is going to get worse before it gets better. I think we all agree on that. And you've just seen some case in points with the South Australian government being one case. A number of the companies in and around critical infrastructure, utilities companies, energy companies, and even some of the mining, energy and gas companies are being targeted presently. So I think we're going to see cybercrime hit the headlines way more. The conversations we're having with customers are more impactful, more emergent. We're having conversations now where we're already seeing that the motivation of the the hackers is very much financially motivated. It's not just your what I would classify as your unsophisticated or easy to protect against, or your nation state cyber attackers, where they're pretty impossible to defend against. What you're seeing is the financially motivated one, and to be brutally honest, it's the new face of organised crime in 2022, yeah. And they're going to get worse before they get better. Obviously, law enforcement is accelerating what they can do and how they do it, but it's not going to be a problem that gets solved overnight. So better security practices, micro-segmentation, it's not new, but properly implemented, it can help you mitigate the impacts associated with on your business. Other conversations we're having, hybrid workplaces means hybrid vulnerabilities. So conversations that we're having where employers are having to balance, if you like, the employee satisfaction side of things and working from home, we're having to now contemplate more and more things around security for working from home environments. So they're conversations we're having with our customers and partners around, but APIs as well. APIs, a larger attack surface now being available for criminals. If they're not already attacking them, they're thinking about attacking them. The growth in APIs, it's across all aspects of the business. It provides a greater visibility into an organization's infrastructure. And we're having conversations around that.
And as we just saw over the weekend, we're recording on a Monday today, but we had the Log4j exploit that went out over the weekend and had teams around the world scrambling to get back and to update and patch that. So I think that the pace of change is definitely another key one when things go out to the wild. As we mentioned with Ariel, in terms of it's a global business really that we're in, and I think that's the key aspect here, that it's consistent around the world. Ariel, maybe from your perspective, when you see things like that sort of Log4j exploit go out, I suppose when you look at that approach, the zero trust approach, and how micro-segmentation actually assists in that type of architecture. If you've got that architecture rolled out, you've got micro-segmentation bedded down, the worry from a security team is a little bit less. It gets controlled in that environment.
I believe so. So let's look at the specific vulnerability a little bit deeper. So basically, it's a vulnerability in one of the Java libraries, pretty common one, which means that someone from an outside can create, start executing code on the machine. That's a remote code execution, which is you can't go any worse, frankly.
Yeah.
So so there is, and those are libraries are very common in web-facing servers, and this is what makes it really bad. So I can assume that at this point, anyone who has not patched his web-facing server first is in major risk of being breached. So what happens if the breach does happen? So what happens is the attacker now running one of your servers inside your data center or in the cloud, and now if you're like most of the organizations, the network internally is relatively flat. So you can assume he has a very wide access to anywhere, from this web server to your most critical database, and then or moving laterally across the environment. So I think this is the real risk of this vulnerability, and this is where micro-segmentation actually comes really well in place, because if you make sure that web servers can only talk to the next layer of servers they should be talking, which is the application servers or whatever they need to access, and nothing else, this limits a lot what an attacker can do. In fact, it almost locks him down into this web server.
Well, at least you also know where they are most likely to be. As you say, if it's a web server and the like, you know where to go looking for them, or I take it also potentially reduces your patch your patch program in terms of rolling that out?
I think web servers is just an example as the ones that commonly use Java infrastructure, but it actually can be anywhere. It can be in any type of server. Yes. Some of the databases like Elasticsearch are using those libraries as well. So it can be anywhere. I think that just the ones that are facing the web are.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was meaning. Yeah, so anything facing the web, initially you can prioritize a little bit easier. Yeah, it starts to identify what is web facing and what's vulnerable, and then what to maybe patch first.
By the way, this is a major problem for CISOs, right? They now have to. They never have been having a registry where all their Java servers are. It was never an interesting point for them. Now they need to, and they need to do it fast, and they need to prioritize. And it can be 10,000 of them. So first, how do they understand where are those servers with Java? Now, which of them are running the vulnerable library? Which of them are facing the internet, or the more critical ones? So it's a major problem of visibility. And I think that, by the way, almost without planning that, micro-segmentation tools have a very important and great visibility component. And the reason there is a visibility component, because when you take your data center, which is flat, and you want to micro-segment, you need to understand a lot about the data center. So almost any micro-segmentation product comes with a great visibility tool that helps you, turn the lights on your data center or the cloud. So interestingly enough, a lot of our customers have been using that component to actually understand how to prioritize patching. So they could query the tool to understand where are my servers running Java, then which servers have this library, and which servers are facing the internet to be patched first, and which can be delayed a little bit. Because patching of this specific one is not that easy. It can be not just, in many cases, not just the software update. In many cases, you need to upgrade your Java infrastructure, which can be hard and painful. So the prioritization and having this visibility is great, and micro-segmentation just by design comes with a lot of visibility. So it was interesting to see.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of the expectations for next year, that kind of brought us on from what the outlook for 2022 was. And that was pretty much, the outlook is what it was just over the weekend. So if you're a CISO, no doubt you would have heard of this exploit. And it's, again, the story is still unfolding. All you can do is patch at this stage. But I think it does highlight where micro-segmentation does come into play. And that zero trust approach does help in these circumstances. So it's a good one. We'll have some details in the show notes in terms of Guardicore and the acquisition. There's a couple of white papers there that we'll share out as well on Guardicore and micro-segmentation. And then obviously the integration into the Akamai platform is another expectation for 2022 and beyond. But we've been joined by Chris Gibbs, Managing Director and Vice President for Australia and New Zealand, and Ariel, Zeitlin, the Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for the Enterprise Security Group. Gents, thanks so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for your time.
Good on you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.